Hey everybody, today we're going over the players we are completely out on, and we're also going over our Week 8 starts of the week, so be sure to stay tuned. Subscribe if you haven't, hit that like button, it helps us a ton. We'll see you in the episode. What's up everybody, welcome back to the Fantasy Football Outpost. My name is Dallas.
And I'm Jay. What's up, guys?
Sorry we haven't been here. Again, I know it sounds like a carousel of us always having some reason we're not here. What it's turning into is guys that don't have time to do this but love it and want to keep doing it. And so that's why we keep running into these weeks where we don't put out any content, but we're still here, we're still hanging out, we're still active on Twitter. So again, if there's weeks we don't put content out, we're definitely trying, but if there's not, we're still around. It's just life gets in the way. We do have to sit down for hours usually to record these, and so we don't always have that. Our biggest problem is we get on these long tangents before the episode even starts when we're looking into stuff. But that's the fun of it. We're both so passionate about it. And today we get to go over some very painful discussions. This is the second reoccurring part of this episode. We did this last year. I had to bite the bullet on this last year. My one that hurt the most was Kenyon Drake last year. Going into the year, I was huge on Kenyon Drake because all the stuff pointed to he should be great, and he wasn't. They flipped the offense 180 and went 0% to the running back passing the ball that we see that they still do now, and he ended up sucking. And so about 6-7 weeks into the year, like we are now, we did our I'm Out segment. And basically what this is guys we were either really high on or at least believed in and redraft that we have zero interest in. I mean, unless the tide kind of turns, it doesn't necessarily mean you should drop them. However, most of them on this list we're dropping. It just means we don't have anywhere close to the expectations we had before. And so I'm going to go ahead and let Jay kick off the one that is absolutely brutal for everyone in the fantasy football community, but both of us especially because we are such huge fans of the guy. But I'll go ahead and let him kick it off here.
So our first player is Allen Robinson. I actually tried to hold on as long as I could, but I just dropped him in one of our leagues. He crushed me for 2 points, and it was a pivotal week for me. And so, do I think that he'll never score fantasy points again this season? No, I'm sure there'll be some positive signs from it. But if you're competing team, it's just a lot to try to hope that he figures it out. They have the bye week coming up. I think it is week 10. It's sad. I mean, we had him as a top 10 receiver, and I think most people did this year.
Yeah, I think I had him at 6. I mean, he's just been absolutely horrible. You take his full season stats, and it equals like one decent game. Right. And we're 7 weeks in. That's what we were just discussing before this started. He got dropped in my main home league, and my worst receiver is A.J. Green, and I would rather have A.J. Green than Allen Robinson on my team. It's crazy to say that. I wish I had some bench depth where I could just pick him up and just sit him there. And at this point, I just wish they'd rule him out so I could just throw him on IR until he decides to show up. But unfortunately, guys like that are just, as the common term that is in the fantasy football community, they're just landmines for your team. You start them, and they lose you weeks time and time again. The James Conner effect from, 2 years ago, where he kept coming back and he was healthy and he was playing, and then you'd start him and he'd score literally nothing. But because he was so good, you had to keep starting him. Allen Robinson was that, and we're all finally just biting the bullet and saying, unfortunately, if he ends up turning things around, it's not going to be on my team. Yep. And we'll let somebody else reap the benefits of it. But there's a good chance that they're getting the downside of it right now by holding on to him, because it's really hard to bench somebody like Allen Robinson, especially with the draft capital you had to spend on him. And so it really, really hurts. But that's the subject. So moving on to my first one. This is one that is going to kind of come to a shock to a lot of people, because a lot of people were already out on him going into the year. But as somebody I purposely would tell people I thought he was one of the biggest mid-round steals this season was Robbie Anderson, because everybody was already fading him like he was going to be useless. And I think it didn't really make sense. I didn't really apply as much to the whole it's Sam Darnold and Robbie Anderson linking up again. Like, I didn't care about that. It was more so the way it's honestly more so the reason he did good last year seemed to be because Matt Rule was his old college coach, and he just knew the player and wanted to focus on getting him the ball. And none of us could understand why, but it just was happening. And so what I ended up doing was saying, everybody's still doing the same carousel we do every single year with DJ Moore, where he's an elite talent, he's going to get the work, and he's going to do great, and then he just doesn't. But we keep investing in that every single year. Whereas I was saying, look over here at Robbie Anderson. Killed it last year, same situation, better quarterback in most people's eyes, or in my eyes, I shouldn't say most people. Going in, people were severely low on Darnold, rightfully so. So it's kind of a toss-up between him and Teddy Bridgewater. But to me, I thought it was an improvement at quarterback. So you got an improvement at quarterback, same situation, and technically if you wanted to throw, they had the link in the past that for comfortability's sake, sure. All things pointed towards him being a deliverable option. And DJ Moore has just done what we all wanted. I mean, that's honestly the only thing I can point to on this is Robbie Anderson is not needed when that whole team is there. And then now that Christian McCaffrey is injured, it's kind of going back to what we saw last year with Robbie Anderson, where he's getting all the targets. But now this team is just so bad without Christian McCaffrey that it doesn't matter. Those targets are useless for everyone, including DJ Moore. And so Robbie Anderson is somebody I dropped 2 weeks ago. But this is basically a PSA. If for some reason you're one of those guys that's still holding on to him, I can tell you one thing that absolutely will not happen is the waiting for a boom game and trading him. Because if he blows up, we're at the point in the season now where everybody's going to be like, yeah, it was just 1 week. Have you seen what he's done the rest of the year? I'm not interested in that. So you can't trade him, and you can't start him. There's no point in holding on to those guys anymore. You go pick up somebody off the waiver wire that you can eventually start or trade or package with something. What's the big waiver target this week that everyone's going after? Bid a little bit more than the other guys, and then trade it to the person who bid for him. Like, that's the whole thing. So, like, guys like Robbie Anderson and the rest of these guys we're naming, if you can't start them and you can't trade them, there's no place for them on your team. They aren't a depth piece player is somebody you can also trade. So if you're not, if they don't fall under either of those categories, you got to move on. And that leads us to our next one, which
speaking of useless targets, is Rondell Moore, who ironically we came in, both of us came in low on him just from a rookie perspective.
Film.
From a film perspective, and there's some like a little bit of highlights for him early on. He has some nice plays. Actually, I'm still a little bit higher on him from a dynasty standpoint than maybe coming into the season. And there was flashes in redraft, and it's just not there. This is too much target distribution going around there in Arizona. They're looking great. I mean, their number one receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, is not dominating just because they're sharing the ball, and it's working really well for them. So he's a guy that another person that I dropped in one of my leagues, just because, as Dallas said, like, he wasn't someone that I was playing. When I had him and he wasn't producing. Is there a point where he might have a great game? Yeah, but Christian Kirk is really playing well right now. So I'd rather have Christian Kirk than Rondell Moore, and Kirk's probably a wide receiver 3 on a lot of teams right now. So if you that's not a guy that you have on your bench in case you have injuries and maybe for a late buy, but really he's not a really usable receiver right now.
Green and Kirk are both 3s.
Yeah.
So when you look at Hopkins there too, and then now Ertz that's going to be getting some work in too, and Chase Edmonds is known for catching the ball. There's just no room for Rondell Moore to ever get more than 3-4 targets a game, 6-7 touches a game. And that was my whole. Go ahead.
I said that right when Ertz traded. We were in one of our group chats. I said we both agreed this is the end of Rondell Moore's targets. Just because Ertz is the guy you want to get the ball to, and he's going to be on the field every play, whereas he's not competing with Kirk and AJ Green to be on the field, whereas Rondell, unless they're running the 4 receiver sets, may not even be on the field in some of those plays.
Yeah, that was my main issue with Rondell Moore coming into the season. I mean, even in Dynasty long term, but the situation stays the same. Was like his play style and his type, like he's going to be used as somebody that comes in and throws the defense off, and he's great at that. That's what any one of these random plays he gets, he can take to the house. Like, he's got that type of talent, but he's just not utilized in a way that's going to be fantasy relevant on any remote consistent basis at all. And now I will say that catch he made, I think it was 2 weeks ago, where he was like falling out of the end zone. They thought he was out of bounds, or falling out of the sidelines. They thought he was out of bounds, and did a little toe tap between two people catch. I at no point in his college career did I see that. So that to me was a good sign. I did like that because I'm extremely low on Rondell Moore because I said his play style was jet sweeps and screens and end arounds, and that's all he could do. And that's all, again, as soon as he comes pro, what do you see? Jet sweeps, end arounds, and screens. That's it. And I was like, that is going to work to throw a defense off. It's never going to be utilized in a way that you want on your fantasy team. Aside, it's a Tavon Austin that has maybe more upside if some other guys leave. That's what it seemed like to me. That catch he made a few weeks ago shows me, okay, there's somebody that can be used down the field, just needs some more work on it. And if that's the case, that does give me more signs of positivity. But this is a redraft segment, and there's no reason to roster Rondell Moore at all on your team. And I could say that, and he could drop 40 next week, and everybody's going to go pick him up. He's going to drop 3 the week after that, and then he's going to be dropped again. That's the whole point. Like, any of these guys on any given week can blow up, but we don't expect it, and they're definitely not a consistent enough basis to where you could trade them after they blow up. And that leads us to my second guy, which is one that is absolutely brutal for me, for a lot of people as well, is Brandon Ayuk. I was in that camp that he was better than Debo. Again, Debo, the joke I made in the league the other day was he couldn't check his mail without getting injured. Like, he literally is always hurt, and Kittle is dealing with injuries. And when Ayuk was handed the opportunity last year to actually take over as the lead target, he thrived in it. He didn't just do well, he did great. And this was somebody they highly, highly believed in and drafted with first-round capital, and now he's not used. I'm not even going to pretend to put some kind of analysis to this like I understand what happened, because I don't. I have no idea. This whole situation here, without me going and doing a deep dive on the film, which I've yet to do yet with the San Francisco 49ers as a whole, it's just been a crapshoot there. I have no idea what they're doing there with any of their decisions. And people can argue, and that they did, was that, Debo's doing great, so obviously it makes sense to target him, but the team's losing every week, so does it really? I don't really know or can pinpoint why Brandon Ayuk has done so bad, but we are 7 weeks deep, 6 games for them because of the bye week, deep of Ayuk literally doing nothing. He's caught 1 touchdown, and that gave him like a barely double-digit week. Outside of that, he's done zilch. And so if you have him in redraft, there's no point in holding him. Same situation as Robbie Anderson. The name value's gone now. People don't care. He's done so bad that even if he blows up, no one's trusting it. You can drop him and move on. I'm completely out, and it's unfortunate because I usually like to know why these things happen so you can try to predict them again in the future. I'd love to know or hear the person who can tell me why what's going on is going on. The last thing I want to hear is, well, it's because he sucks. Because we saw last year that's not the case, so I genuinely have no idea what's going on here. But I don't want any part of it.
And, I mean, really, you took a lot of words out of my mouth for the next guy. Elijah Moore. It's not a relevant piece. There's a lot of talk coming into it that he might be searched for Rookie of the Year. Had a great camp and hasn't produced. So, I mean, because it's a redraft segment. He's a guy that I'm still holding on to in Dynasty because I like his future, but not useful piece this year. So I have a long picture because really you can just replace what we said about Ayuk and as far as performing and not really knowing the situation there. And now, especially with Zach Wilson being injured and issues, the Jets in general, it's just we thought for a moment that he might be able to thrive in spite of the mess, but he's succumbed to the mess that the Jets are. So it's all I got for Elijah Moore.
Yeah, that I hate blaming everything on this, but it really does seem like that offensive line is 100% the cause of almost all their problems. When you have no time for any of your receivers to even try to get open, and then the defense also knows that you have no time for any of your receivers to try to get open, and you can't run the ball because you have no time for any of your receivers to try to get open, so they feel no threat of you passing, and they know they can just play for the run. You have an entire offense that is going to do literally nothing, and so you definitely don't want what appears to be the second option on that offense. And in some cases, because of Jamison Crowder, He's the third option in Elijah Moore. And so the first option is barely startable on a good matchup in Corey Davis. And so even that is, you got to be hurting. It looked good at the beginning of the year, but like you said, with the injury, I mean, they signed Joe Flacco in a trade. I want no part of any of that offense. And so, unfortunately, in redraft, moving on. However, I'm right there with Jay. This is one of my biggest trade for targets because I'm such a big believer in his ability, and I like Zach Wilson a lot. So I think if they can find some improvements on that offensive line going forward, he should definitely be somebody that delivers later on in his career. So if you can go get him on pennies on the dollar and just, slap him on your taxi for now, kind of like what you're doing with maybe like a Van Jefferson. In a lot of cases where I have him stashed because there's so many guys ahead of him. Unfortunately, they re-signed everybody, so Van Jefferson's value went down. But you look prior to the extension to both guys, you imagine right now what Van Jefferson would be viewed as if Robert Woods or Cooper Kupp left. Right. And so that's what the situation with Elijah Moore should be already penciled into what we were hoping Van was. You can just go get him, slap him on your taxi, hope that the team looks better next year, and if so, you can pull him off. But if not, that's fine. He's not hurting you to just sit there. You're getting him super cheap because he will pay off eventually unless they just never figure things out there. And that's going to lead us to our last guy. So this wasn't just a giant cluster of wide receivers because, unfortunately, that does seem to be the trend in positions that just have been all over the place this year because running backs, the problem with them is even if they're doing bad, like an example I thought about using was Antonio Gibson. He's still somebody you want on your team. He's not, so you're not going to be out on him. You just don't have him as high as you maybe did mentally. But I was able to find a running back that I am legit out on that I did view at least as a flex guy, and that's Nyheim Hines. Going into the year, especially with them giving him his extension, I thought he was going to be used a lot more than he is. It does not seem Carson Wentz. He doesn't play that game Phillip Rivers did, where he's just going to keep checking it down all the time. And they have Jonathan Taylor out there so much now that the checkdowns are going to him too, which is good. That's what we wanted to see out of Taylor. It's the main reason I was hesitant on him, and I've definitely moved him up my board some. Nyheim Hines, to continue that, has been useless. I mean, literally he's done nothing, and he's somebody that in full PPR I'm talking about I'm out on. Obviously in half, and if for some reason you're still playing standard, like he shouldn't even ever been on your team. But in full PPR, he was at least what seemed to be a nice flex-worthy option if you needed him. Get maybe 10 to 12 points out of him, 6-7 catches for 50 yards or whatever. That's fine. But he's not getting anything. He's literally getting you in full PPR, getting you like 2-3 points. And you can't keep that on your team. You can't keep it around. You aren't going to be able to trade it at this point unless he's just to handcuff Jonathan Taylor, and he won't be used as the bell cow back if Jonathan Taylor goes down. So even that's still kind of redundant. I mean, I really don't see him. It's not like Mac is getting a bunch of work hurting Hines either, so if he gets traded, that still doesn't make me excited for Hines. I'm completely out on Hines. There's really no upside there to even try for.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, that's going to be it for our I'm out segment. So, again, there's plenty of guys that you're going to be out on, but those guys that we listed here, you need to drop them. Get them off your team. They're just dragging you down. If you're still holding on to them, just debating, should I move them? Use this as that validation if you're looking for it. Get rid of them. They're just hurting your team.
Yep.
And if you know guys that fall under these categories, same thing. Get rid of them. So that's going to be it for the I'm Out segment. We're going to go ahead and roll things over. All right, so for our Week 8 starts of the week, we're going to go ahead and kick things off with quarterback. Jay, I'll let you start.
My quarterback is Kirk Cousins. They're playing Dallas. He actually ended up being projected higher than I thought going into it, just because of the matchup. He's not been bad, but I think there's the shootout. There's going to be a shootout down there with the Vikings and the Cowboys, and I know Dak will be a highly sought-after QB or the guy you have to play. So I'm looking for the same out of Kirk Cousins because they will throw the ball to keep up with the Cowboys. So that's my quarterback for Week 8, start of the week.
Yep, I'm right there with you. It's going to be a shootout there. So my quarterback start of the week is Carson Wentz. Again, like I said, when we go over these are based off of Fantasy Pros projections for where they're at, and we feel they're going to finish better than they were. Kirk Cousins is projected to be number 9. Carson Wentz is the projected 18 overall quarterback. He's going up against Tennessee. The same reasons I had for Trevor Lawrence a few weeks ago. That defense is terrible. I do feel like Tennessee's going to win the game, but That being said, this should be a shootout. They showed us what they did against San Francisco, that they can put up offensive points as well. Michael Pittman's starting to step into his own, and I'm really liking the direction this offense is headed. And so I think Carson Wentz should definitely finish a lot higher than the quarterback 18. So moving on to running back here. My running back start of the week is Joe Mixon going up against the Jets. The only reason I picked Joe Mixon, this one sounds obvious if you're like me and you hear Jets and you're like, well, yeah, of course. For whatever reason, in both Sleeper and on the Fantasy Pros projections, he was projected to be the RB11, and I think he's got a very good shot at finishing like top 4, top 5 this week because of the Jets simply being so easy to run the ball on. So my start of the week is Joe Mixon against the Jets.
So my running back for this week is Chuba Hubbard, running back for Carolina, handcuff or whatever for CMC at this point. So he is projected to be finished at running back 14. I think the Atlanta game is going to be a good game for him. I think in some rankings he is a little bit higher than 14, which makes sense. I think it'll be a strong game. They're figuring things out with quarterback, offense, all that stuff. So I think they go back to what they know, which is ironically not the CMC based offense. And so I think their playbook will fill in a lot of Chuba work for him, which may not be as much variety and pass catching that they would have for CMC, but I think that's kind of the foundation of their system. And with all the uncertainty, they kind of go back to what they know. And he's done a pretty good job of being kind of a budget CMC for production wise, even though definitely not nearly as talented, but I think in the end, it'll get you a nice fantasy performance this week. And then now moving on to my wide receiver, I'm going back to my guy, Antonio Brown.
Quickly before Jay continues about Antonio Brown, this was recorded when we were still kind of in the unknown as to what his injury really looked like, and we thought he might have been back this week. Things are starting to trend towards now he's not going to be playing possibly for multiple weeks. So Jay did want me to include this caveat that if he is out, he basically translates everything he said right over to Chris Godwin as his start of the week. So just keep that in mind. Everything you're hearing here, if Antonio Brown does not play, his start of the week is Chris Godwin instead.
Coming off of the injury, for some reason, I just feel like Brady likes to target him, and I think he was itching for last week and wasn't able to play. And so he's projected to be wide receiver 33 right now, and I think he'll outperform that. I mean, he's outperforming everything he's been throwing at for the last couple of weeks, except for the week right before he got hurt, to where we finally said, AB is really doing it. Now he's back down after the big week from Evans, and I think I've not seen Tampa Bay have back-to-back weeks with the same guy exactly. So I think Antonio Brown will be heavily targeted against New Orleans, just this middle of the field, causing some chaos for that secondary. So I don't know if I don't think Lattimore will be on him. I think Lattimore will take Evans or Godwin for the most part. And so I think that'll open it up for Antonio Brown.
Oh, that's what I was about to say, was for reasons not listed, Antonio Brown should be featured here because Mike Evans is going up against his dad, Marshawn Lattimore, this week. That is a rivalry that has been established since Lattimore has been in the league. He has absolutely shut down Evans every single time that they play. If anybody knows everything Evans is trying to do, it's Lattimore. So you can pretty much write Lattimore off every time they play this, or Evans off every time they play the Saints. So then it becomes, who's going to get it more? Is it going to be Godwin, or is it going to be Brown? And for whatever reason, it seems like any offense that's produced out of the Saints are these bombs. And so I feel like Bucs are going to turn right around and do the same thing. And of the two, Brown should be the one receiving those bombs. And he always, because of the talent on this team, finds himself just wide open 30 yards down the field for whatever reason. So I'm fully co-signing Antonio Brown. He should be a great, great start this week. So my wide receiver start of the week is Keenan Allen. I think it's finally that week for him to bounce back into what we all know he is. He is projected to be – Antonio Brown was projected to be the wide receiver 33 on the week, by the way. Keenan Allen is projected to be the wide receiver 23. They're going up against New England, a team that is struggling right now, just lost their best corner for the rest of the year with shoulder surgery, I believe it was. And so you've got openings everywhere. And we all know the Belichick rule. He's going to eliminate your best offensive piece. That thus far has not been Keenan Allen. He's either going to do Mike Williams or he's going to do Eckler. More likely than not, it's going to be Eckler. But we'll see how things pan out. But I can see a world where, because the way he's trying to restrict it is Eckler's receiving work, that's a lot simpler than trying to eliminate the best wide receiver on a team, so he could just simply throw a tight end or a linebacker to try and follow and all the little dump off routes. And so that would still allow him to then, okay, let me try to get real creative here and take out your second option too, which would be Mike Williams. And I just think this is going to be a game where Keenan Allen finds himself open the whole time. And so I don't think they have anybody across the middle of the field that's going to be able to keep up with Allen through this game. And so I look for him to have a really, really good game. Kind of fits that same offensive role that you see CD Lamb have, and he went off on New England last week. So I think this is going to be a big week for Keenan Allen. He's going to hopefully deliver. He's projected as low as the 23 right now. I think he could finish as a wide receiver 1 this week. So moving on to our last set, which is our tight ends. Unfortunately, I'm playing that game where, as Jay said, I'm chasing the New England tight ends and bouncing back and forth. I'm not going to be bouncing back and forth if any of them pop back up again, because it is clearly Hunter Henry. He is the tight end to have in New England. He's actually, it's not just who's the better of the two bad tight ends. He's actually been a very, very good tight end this season. And this is a revenge game going back against the Chargers. And again, I just think this is a good matchup for him because he is not, the Patriots do not have a whole lot to choose from. It's kind of a let me pass it around as much as I can on a one consistent piece, especially at the goal line, has been Hunter Henry, and he's projected to be the tight end 12. I don't think he's going to blow up and be like the 1 or anything like that, but I definitely think he's going to finish as better or at least the tight end 12, which consistency is all you're searching for here. And so I think Hunter Henry has got a good week ahead of him going back to the Chargers, and or at least against them again. And so he is my start of the week at tight end.
Yeah, so my start tight end is CJ Uzomah. He had a great week last week, and I think people are going to kind of balance out and say it was a fluke. And I don't know that CJ is going to have that production throughout the season, but I think with all of the focus being on Jamar Chase, his excellence, and then the number of targets going to T. Higgins, that the Jets defense is going to try to center on someone and something to try to slow them down this week. Don't think they'll do that very well, but I think that'll open up CJ Uzomah the same way it did in the past week, just with hyper focusing, double covering, pulling safety over. Mixon will be working on the ground, so a lot of play action from Burrow. And I think he'll have a great week. He's projected to be the tight end 14, and I think he'll outperform that. I don't know how long that will be a viable guy to go to down the stretch, but for right now, I would keep rolling with the CJ Uzomah train while we can. So that's my tight end start of the week.
All right, everybody, that has been our week 8 starts of the week. Hopefully you guys all have great weeks in fantasy so far. It's been a absolute rocky road for everyone, seems like, this season. And so hopefully better times are ahead for everyone. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell to see any time that we upload. You can follow us on Twitter. Handles right below us here. At DallasFFO, at Pick on the Block, and at the FF Outpost on Twitter. Hit us up if you got any questions about anything. Make sure you drop a like. Helps us a bunch. And again, thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next one.
See you guys.
Bye.